I greet you with the joy of Jesus in my heart, for it is in him that I live, I breathe, move, and have my very being. I am so glad that you joined Unboxed on Purpose today, a podcast created for Favored by the Father Ministries. I am Barbara Arlene Fields Brehon, your host. Our guests share how they stepped outside of dark places in life or stepped out of comfort zones. Perhaps they simply made a pivot towards purpose to become unboxed. We will discuss all kinds of experiences that lead to fulfillment of purpose, and each episode, I pray, will help the audience to access their authentic destiny. So, sharing with us today is Dr. Sam Morhaim, who is a periodontal surgeon residing in Glen Cove, New York. Sam has nearly 30 years of experience, and his primary focus and expertise is performing advanced implant surgical procedures to help his patients return to normal function. He achieves this goal by associating himself with an assembled team of specialists who share like-minded passion in dentistry. Another side to Dr. Morhaim's life is his strong commitment to his family and to his culture. As the son of two Cuban immigrants, he wrote and published a children's book that tells the story of his family's arrival to the United States from the perspective of his older brother at the age of 5. He also enjoys bike riding, kayaking, archery, attending sports events, and spending quality time with his 3 children. Dr. Sam Ara Morhaim will discuss finding your silver lining. Hey, Dr. Sam, thanks for being
Hi,
here.
how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, getting over a cold. That's all that I can
Oh,
talk
I'm sorry
about,
to
but
hear that.
we're not going to stay there. We're going to keep it moving.
Okay, good.
Tell our audience how we met, how we got to know each other.
Well, I wrote a children's book, and through that children's book, there were connections made with various people, and I was connected uh, through you via Quip Quail, an organization who's interested in my book for various reasons. And we had a chat, you and I, quite some time ago, and we found that we could be connected as well through this book and through, our life's journeys. So I think that there's some commonalities there in terms of how we see and view life, from a very positive and enlightening perspective.
Great way to put it. Again, shout out to Robert Williams and the Quippy Quill organization that we have books in common with that company. So let's stick with Dr. Sam here and talk about you, your teen years, your childhood, and various passions that you may have had back in the day that actually spilled into who you have become.
Well, I was born from two Cuban immigrants who had to flee their country due to communist takeover in Cuba. And I was born in Brooklyn. My brother, who's 8 years older, who just celebrated his 69th birthday 2 days ago. And my son Alex's birthday is today, actually. Um, you know, I think that growing up with that perspective and having it, grilled into me that your democratic ideas should never be taken for granted resonated with me throughout my life. And I think that growing up in Brooklyn also grounded me because pretty much everybody was on the same socioeconomic level. You never really felt like you were out of place in any way. So growing up very grounded with strong family foundation,
Hmm.
strong sense of upbringing, basic human needs, nothing extravagant, everyone pretty much on the same level, I think was a great way to grow up and learn to appreciate everything that I had. And I worked very hard to achieve the goals that I've achieved. Coming back to my parents, it was instilled in me that becoming a professional was very important because
Hmm.
both of them were professionals. My mother, a teacher, and my father, an architect.
Okay.
And my brother and I grew up realizing that that's something that can't be taken away from you if you achieve that goal. So whether you
Hmm.
have to leave your country like they did, or some type of emergency situation such as that, no matter what, your achievements stay with you. So I think that helped me pursue a field in the medical field. It was pretty much outlined by my parents. You had a few choices. You need to become a professional, and if you have a trade, then be the best at your trade.
Right.
So that's basically how I evolved, and that's why my brother's a dermatologist and I'm a periodontal surgeon.
That's interesting. So, in terms of being a professional, you had a plethora of things to choose from. Why becoming a periodontal surgeon
I
on your
think that
radar? When did
that's
that happen?
Yeah, I think that was more innate. Um, you just kind of realize that you're interested in, the science behind it. I was always
Okay.
into science and math,
I see.
uh, and the same thing for my brother. And I think it was just something that I was born with. It was something that I knew that I wanted to pursue. The specifics of it just kind of evolved over time.
Hmm.
Initially, I did want to become a physician, and then I learned that I didn't really love hospitals. And I was wondering if I could do something else without having to be in a hospital all the time. And that's why I chose dentistry. But
Hmm.
ironically, I am spending some time in hospitals in the later years of my profession because as I evolved as a periodontal surgeon, I never stopped learning and I'm continually taking
Great.
courses to better my skills and keep my mind sharp and my didactic portion of my profession ongoing. You're a student of science for the rest of your life when you decide to go into medicine. At least you should view it that way, which is the way I do. I'm always taking very advanced courses to better myself in terms of what I can offer patients.
I truly resonate with you in regard to any profession that you climb to the top of your best for yourself in that, and you are a perpetual, ongoing student. You always do more in order to learn whatever is out there because there's always something coming up that wasn't done before. And how would you know if you don't sit at somebody else's feet from time to time?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, out of the conversation with how you came to do what you're currently doing, not what, who would you say is your biggest influence in life other than your parents?
Oh, other than my parents?
I'm saying other than, I just want to see where you go with that.
Wow. That's a tough question because I would always go back to my mother as being my rock. My father, unfortunately, I lost at a very early age due to pancreatic cancer. I was 18 when he died, and he was 52 at the time. And my mother's always been my rock. And when I look back, she was always there. My brother, I would have to say, is a close second because he was just that, an older brother, a big brother, and he had more experience, and he was on the same path that I wanted to take. So it was a lot easier for me to kind of focus on how he did things, and he had a very strong personality. And growing up, we were very connected. So I would say my brother would be the secondary person that I would turn to in terms of guidance.
You can't ignore the fact that family is first for you.
It
And
is.
the truth is what it is. And I want our listeners to just understand that in order to be rooted and grounded in whatever your purpose is, you have to have an identity. You have to do an identity check. And so let's just leave that alone for right now and talk about some specific things that you want to share with the audience as it directly pertains to stepping outside of a box to pursue your ultimate purpose.
Well, as you evolve as a human being, I think you have to look at yourself and decide who you are at a very early age. I set short term and long term goals for myself. The turning point for me was my father's death because I was a freshman in college at the time, and those were very critical years for deciding what to do for the rest of your life. And I think that what I want to share, and I try to tell people, and I know we talked about this briefly the last time we spoke, is you have to decide what you want to be as an individual, not necessarily as a profession. That comes with the territory, but not to waste the gift that you've been given. Um, you know, to be placed on this earth, and for whatever talents you have, and then kind of look deep into yourself to try to bring them out and make them better. So my um, advice to people would be, don't focus so much on the things that you don't do well. Focus on the things you already know you do well and make them better, because then you're going to achieve very high goals. Leave the stuff that you don't do well to other people, because they have skills in those areas that they can make better. But I kind of was very honest with myself, and I knew where my talents lied, and I knew that I didn't want to waste my life, because my father struggled to get me where I was at that point. And I knew, and I had a very clear understanding of what his goals were and what his goals would have been for me. And I didn't want to let him down. So it always goes back to that, I think. And I try also to tell people, don't waste your time trying to figure out why something like that happened, because you're never going to find out the answer. You just have to have faith that it happened for a reason, and then try to find some positivity in it so that you can rationalize why it happened, because that's all you got. I mean, you're going to proceed with your life, and having that in mind is very important, because if you focus on the negativity or the uncertainty, you're just going to be wasting time. Just get it out of your mind. Focus on the present and the future. And I'm not saying don't grieve. Of course I grieved, and I still do to some degree when I look back, because you start realizing all the things that you could have had and that you missed. But maybe some of the things that you achieved in your life wouldn't have happened without that perseverance. And what I'm saying is, maybe my father's passing propelled me to do things that I wouldn't have done, because I would have taken things for granted more. That's all I can say about that. And so focus on the positive, focus on what you can do as a result of that happening. And I always keep it in mind that he would have been proud that I did what I did, because I know that he would have been disappointed if I chose to fail, because it's very easy to do that. You can use situations like that as an excuse for failure, or you can use them to propel you to achieve greater goals. And I chose the latter.
It sounds like a great segue into the whole notion of your title for this particular episode, Finding Your Silver Lining. Tell us a little bit more in regard specifically to how that title came to be today.
So I knew that I was basically, other than the emotional support of my mother and my brother, I was pretty much on my own in terms of making, lifelong decisions. And financially, I knew that I had to secure myself. So at a very early age, I approached my life a little differently than most people who had some options for financial backing. I didn't have that. And I had to be very serious and very focused when I was in school, because I said, look, I got one shot at this, and I'm going to make it count. So, and I'm not saying I didn't go through some turbulence along the way, because I had to work things out. I will say that it wasn't like today where, you could turn to counseling, psychologists, and there's a lot of talk out there about how to deal with, these kinds of situations. We just didn't do that in those days. So I was kind of like rationalizing and dealing with, all these emotions and the realities that I didn't have a father to guide me through life. And I did the best I could. And I will say this, having faith, and I didn't consider myself to be a very religious person. And you don't need to be, you just have to have faith. And my father was guiding me. I felt that he was in major decisions that I made. And even when I made wrong decisions, I felt his presence. And that helped me quite a bit. Having the strong family foundation, and having the notion that I knew that he was still guiding me, because I managed to achieve and get certain opportunities that I feel that he was there helping me achieve, even though his physical presence wasn't there. So that was kind of cool. So I will say that I focused very hard on achieving my goals in school, because I knew that through education doors would open if I did well, and I always had done well prior to my father's death, and then made some decisions about the goals that I wanted to achieve. And I knew that I was going to be in medicine somehow. So that made it easier. So I was very, very focused on attaining that goal. And fortunately, one of my skills was being very resourceful. So I connected myself with the right types of people in order to do that, and associated myself with friends who had very similar outlooks on life. And, that kind of propelled me to achieve the goals that I did. And, it was hard. I had to have, jobs while I was in school, whereas some kids, could just go to school and focus on their grades. I had to make sure that I was very efficient with my time. But again, all these things shape your character and help you later on in life. And while it's hard going through them, facing reality, facing failures, I think is the beginnings of why you become successful, and you start finding things in your character to help you achieve goals and believe in yourself and that you can achieve these things. Everything I set out to do in my life was very calculated, and I achieved everything that I wanted to achieve. There wasn't one thing that I could think of that I didn't want to achieve. And that's not saying that I didn't have failures along the way. I think it's
Right.
necessary to have failures, very necessary, because that's how you realize what the success is, and then you can immerse yourself in the success more because it you were able to get through turbulent times in order to achieve them.
I know that what you are talking about resonates with people. And the bottom line is that in order to find your silver lining, you work hard, you set goals, you achieve them with failures, because the failures are necessary for you to understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And sometimes the first plan is not the best plan. That really does not necessarily equate to failing. It simply wasn't time or the right thing for you at that time. And so I love the way that you're being candid and just very open in this conversation. And I want to move along into that space where, with all of this being said, you became an author. And so
Yes.
tell us about those pivotal points that drove you into that whole notion of writing. I don't want to ask too much because I want you to say it your own way.
Well, that was, I think, by accident. I always wrote. I was class writer in high school, and I wrote for the newspaper. I wrote on my own, um, just not really kept a journal or anything like that, but I would jot down certain things that were of interest to me, and I knew that I would somehow put it together. And I always thought about writing something, and what happened accidentally is that as I became a periodontist, I would meet a number of people, obviously through my practice, and in talking to my patients and getting to know my patients, they would like to sometimes inquire about my background. And what I found was there was something interesting about it, and you don't always think that you're interesting in any way. And it turned out that people were very interested in my story, and I said, what a good thing it would be to be able to write about my story. It'll help me kind of put everything into a timeline and give perspective to my life. And I elected to uh, write about it at first as a novel. And then I said it was too complicated and it would have taken too long. And I wasn't really a writer in that uh, way. I was more about telling short stories. And I think that I felt more of a comfort in doing it on the level that I did it, meaning through a children's book, because I said, what a great way to be able to get this across pretty concisely from the perspective of my brother, who was 5 at the time when he left Cuba, and then have other children relate to that story, knowing that he went through it. And I'm sure there were other kids who had similar stories, and that would help them. So I made a decision one day, and I thought about it over about a year, and I said, "Oh, I need to do this." And then one day I just sat down in a Starbucks and banged it out, and it just flowed off my tongue. And then I self-published, which I'm very proud of, and I'm going to continue to do that. I'm in the midst of writing 2 other books, and spoiler alert, they are follow-ups to this. initial story. There'll be a trilogy, so to speak. You know, most of it nonfiction, some of it fiction, to make it a little bit more interesting and fun. And again, they are children's books, uh, trying to, you know, bring light in terms of the positivity of the whole situation, and showing people that, you know, you can achieve things despite some tragedies, or you know, things that you may go through in your life that make you think otherwise, that you know, there isn't a possibility to excel. So I think that that's where it all came from, you know.
Sounds wonderful. I love the way that you're so easily able to explain your journey in life and how you've gone from point A to point B, but there's a thread that's woven through all of it, and there isn't a thought about not being able to. It's just setting that goal, keep moving forward, and you can find a silver lining depending on your perceptive. Your
Yes, I
perception
think
really
you
matters.
you need to be open to it. I'm a pretty bottom line kind of a person, and again, that came through um, from my family. You know, I'm a sensitive person in many ways, but at the same time, I'm a bottom line kind of person. Like, look, these are the cards that you've been dealt with. There's nothing you can do about it. And meaning there's nothing you can do about things that are negative, that happen to you in your life. Some people get cancer, some people have deaths in their families, some people are learning to live with diseases, loss of limbs. And every time you hear stories about how people get past these negative events, and learn and find a way to persevere and seem to have greater character than most. And you're saying, wow, that's amazing. How could that person do that? I don't know if I can do that. Well, you don't know because you weren't put in that position. And hopefully you don't have to. It's not to say you want to be put in that position, but if you are, you need to find it within your character about how to make something of that situation and turn it into positivity, and then have that exponentially, you know, trickle down to other people. So for me, I think your life is not about you, but it's about how you do things to affect other people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go through life just isolated and thinking that it's all about you, then you've really missed the boat. So for me, it's how you affect other people, and some people manage to do this on an exponential level. And you know, I you know, could think of a lot of stories. You know, there was somebody recently on the news who ended up getting paralyzed. It was a girl. It was just a random local kid who was challenged by a couple of friends. She was with her sister, and she was in her teens, and she was very athletic, and she elected to do something that was a little extraordinary, and she ended up becoming paralyzed. And next thing you know, she's in this, you know, her life changed overnight, and or instantly rather, and now she has to figure out how to go through life in a wheelchair. And she was so inspirational, you know, because she was talking about how she's playing tennis in college and got a scholarship, and she's in a wheelchair. And she, if you talk to her, you simply start forgetting that she didn't have mobility, you know, below her waist. And I think that's the point, you know. You know, I went to school with somebody who was completely deaf, and I was amazed because I said every time I felt like complaining, all I had to do was think of her and say
Okay.
she has it so much harder. You know, I'm going through everything, but I can hear, and she's going through it without hearing. So what am I complaining about? And I think all these things happen to put things in perspective for you. And it's a reminder of why, you should cherish life. People always say, oh, why me? What, why did this happen? Well, you're never going to figure it out. But if you use it in such a way where you say, well, maybe it happened to make me realize something.
Absolutely.
That's how I rationalize it.
I like the way that you use a particular word, and I want to just repeat that your thought here is letting things exponentially trickle down, because it's not about you. It's about what you're doing with what you have for somebody else. I just love the way you put stuff together, and those words just resonated in my heart. So I wanted to say it again: exponentially trickling down. What audience is exponentially trickling out of you for somebody else? That's powerful, to help you find your silver lining that's already right in front of you. It's already there. All you have to do is switch your perspective. This is beautiful stuff right here. Anything else you want to share with us before we do our little closing? What's coming up next for you? Any other particular information? What's
Well, I
future generation
continue.
advice? Anything?
Yeah, I'm 61 years old now, and people are coming up to me saying, "Well, when are you going to retire?" And I say, "Well, what exactly does that mean?" Because I still enjoy doing what I'm doing, and I may not be doing it at the capacity that I was doing it before, or I may alter the way I'm doing it. So what my advice would be is to gain control in some fashion, and look at yourself and see what you're happy and what you're not happy about. And if you're not happy about something, try to make a change. And if you make a change and it feels good, then you know that you did something that was right. It's very simple. I think that a lot of us have much more control than we think we have, and a lot of it starts with our mind. You need to just take a good, hard look at yourself and just be honest with yourself and know your limitations, but also don't stop pursuing things that keep your life interesting and that will help impact others.
Right.
I think that if you keep those things in perspective, then your life will be very fulfilling. And it has nothing to do with money, because I know that I've been very happy when I had no money, and sometimes very unhappy when I had a lot of money. So it has a lot to do, and of course, we all have stresses when it comes to financial things. I'm not saying that. Reality is reality, okay? And you have to face reality when you need to, but don't get swallowed up by it.
Right.
You have one life to live,
Mm-hmm.
and make an impact, and don't let it be about yourself.
That's
So
right.
what's happening with me right now professionally, I'm taking a series of courses to advance my skills and make myself even more relevant, and make myself feel like I'm reaching the pinnacle of my profession. I continue with my hobbies to write, and continue to explore what I want to do with that. And I think a lot of doors are going to open and then just carry me through different paths based upon the way I'm approaching this. And I think that some of it will happen accidentally, and just maintain a positive attitude. And when you feel yourself getting reeled down, try to quickly convince yourself, because that's the
What?
power of your thinking, to come out of it and remind yourself of what you should be doing instead of wallowing in your sorrows. And I'm not saying don't grieve when you need to. I think it's healthy
Right.
to grieve, but just don't let it consume you.
Great words of wisdom. Don't let it consume you. You don't need to be stuck in a dark place. You don't need to be stuck in a box. You may easily, with some work at it to find that place where you can step outside of that darkness and step into your purpose. So, the only other question I have for you is how can our listeners and viewers connect directly with you, Doctor?
Well, they could certainly find me on the internet. My website, created through my children's books, is called Where Are All My Toys at gmail.com, just like it sounds. WHEREAREALLMYTOYS at gmail.com. They can see what's going on with me as far as the children's books are concerned. They can go to LinkedIn and look me up, Dr. Sam Morhaim, and I post all the things that are going on with me professionally on that page.
Sure.
And hopefully you'll be seeing a lot more of me because I've been approached for potential movie and publishing acquisitions, and who knows, something like that might come out of it, and then I'll be telling my story in a different way.
We'll have you back so that you can give us that update. How about that?
That would be amazing.
I'm looking forward to that. We'll be sure to be connected and stay connected on LinkedIn as well as any other social media. We've started something and we don't have to stop it because we're at the end of this particular broadcast. But thank you so much, Dr. Sam R. Morhaim. You are unboxed on purpose. You want it the way you want it, and you're kind of, structured with that, but there's nothing wrong with it. I think you've encouraged others to step outside of themselves and see another perspective.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share my story and my goals. And, I hope it helps your listeners who might be in not such a good place and, are looking for that moment to come out of it, so to speak, and shine, because there's a lot to be done.
Thank you so much for just outpouring yourself in an authentic way. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. And if you would like to be a guest on Unboxed on Purpose, go to our website, Favorite by the Father Ministries, and let's talk about it. Podcast is designed so that you could tell your story. Leave your name, email address, Unboxed on Purpose in the subject line, and briefly tell us why you want to be on the show. Connect with us on our website. Contact us. Again, thank you so much for joining us for Unboxed on Purpose. Join us every Thursday where we release new episodes on our YouTube channel, Favored by the Father Ministries. I also post them on LinkedIn and Facebook, and they're available on Spotify and on other podcast platforms. I want each person to understand and know that we evolve. Our guest today has talked about an evolution in his life. As we evolve, we are like the butterfly floating out of a box and allowing the Spirit of God to advance us to any immeasurable, lofty level that we care to perceive. Fulfill your purpose. Grow your intimacy with God by knowing who you are. The Lord gives you opportunities to grow in His grace and to remain favored by the Father. Thank you so much. I hope to see you again next week.
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
God bless you too.
I am really excited to share with you that after completing the Disciples Journey series, I began compiling daily devotionals that I send out via social media. Reverend BB's Morning Messages is a series of devotional reflections designed to inspire and uplift your spirit, guiding you in your walk every day with God each morning. In May 2025, Volume 2 was released, authored by yours truly, Barbara Arlene Fields Brehon, affectionately known as Reverend BB. These messages are concise yet profoundly impactful, meeting you right where you are, right there at home, on your job, in your car, wherever it is that you access social media, but now in a book that you can take anywhere you go. Rooted in Scripture, each reflection is thoughtfully crafted to speak life, bring clarity, sometimes offer correction, and stir hope in the heart of every reader. Whether you are starting your day with prayer, seeking guidance for your journey, or simply in need of a spiritual boost, Reverend BB's Morning Messages will become a cherished companion in your daily devotional life. Please know that every devotional reading is rooted and grounded in the Word of God. It's available on Amazon. Check out Barbara Arlene Fields Brehon and remain favored by the Father.